The following program sponsored by Adams Financial Concepts.
About money, a different approach to investing you won't hear anywhere else. Your host, Mike Adams, is a registered investment advisor and works with investment portfolios exceeding over $100,000 in net worth, and has a proven track record of managing long-term investments surpassing the markets in the long term. The information shared on the following program is for educational purposes only, and any investment advice given may not be suitable for all investors. And now, here's Mike.
And we're going to be talking about money, so we've got a lot to cover today. I just finished reading the book Thanks for Being Late by Thomas Friedman, his latest book. And that brought to mind the book Bold by Peter Diamandis and a few articles from The Economist. And I thought this week, putting all that together made a lot of sense. Plus, I had a luncheon that figured into the whole thing. And I thought, there's a lot of information that I should share. So I am going to be sharing that today. So remember the Black Swan? Everybody talked about the Black Swan incident, 2007, 8, and 9, with the market crashing down. Completely unexpected, completely a surprise to almost everyone, almost everyone. Although there's a lot of people that go back now and claim that they knew. You know, I could claim that I knew because I put out a newsletter back in 2006 that said, watch out for the real estate market. There's some real issues there. But I didn't see it coming. I saw a crunch, but not a crisis. But the Black Swan, that was a big thing people talked about because, you know, a black swan, most swans are white. But once in a while, a great rarity happens, and it's a random event. It's a very rare event, but you end up with a black swan. And that's what people called 2006, 2007, 2008. Well, now the new term is black elephant. Not black swan, black elephant. Going to tell you about what all that means, and we're going to talk about that later in the program. So don't go away. We've got a lot to cover, characterized by the black elephant. That's coming. Don't go away. I've got a great guest today who's got a great story to tell, something that's moving into the future and something that's very important to do. But a few months ago on the program, I had VoiceBox, and they talked. VoiceBox is in the process, a company making and digitalizing voice commands and interpreting voice. You know, today we have Echo, we have Siri by Apple, we have those programs that listen. But one of the issues with voice is interpreting what words mean. Volume. Does it mean the volume on the radio? Does it mean the volume of a box? Does it mean the volume of a stock market? You know, those are issues that have to be dealt with in context when you're talking to a computer, when you're talking to something that's computerized. They have to interpret what are those volumes you mean. And it's not volume, it's a number of phrases and words. And that got me to thinking, too, about what's going on in Japan right now. Digital switchboards, things that are happening, because the average life expectancy of men right now is 80 in Japan. Women are 87 and expected very shortly to be 84 for men and 91 for women. You know, today 25% of the Japanese population is over 65, and it's expected by 2050, 39% of the Japanese population will be over the age of 65. And those people are going to need caretakers. You know, with what's going on in Japan, they have limited immigration. And if you look at caretakers, those are generally lower paying jobs. They're high turnover and a lot of injuries that are involved. And the Japanese Ministry of Health is estimating that by 2025, that's not very long from now, 8 years from now, by 2025, Japan is going to need 4 million caretakers. Today they have 1.5. they need an additional 2.5 million caretakers. Caretakers that are generally low pay, high turnover, injuries. So what's happening is that companies are beginning to develop robots. Remember 3PO and R2-D2 and how they related to Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and so on? If you go way back, you remember what the original Star Wars were. You know, right now, the focus in Japan, in at least one area, is to build robots. Toyota has built Robina. Robina, remember Robina was from the Flintstones? You know, Robina is 4 foot tall. Robina is a robot that has eyes, a hairdo, a white skirt, and she works as a nanny and a housekeeper. She's intended to be a partial caregiver. Toyota has also developed a male, humanoid he's called. He does the dishes and he handles the entertainment. Honda has gotten into the game with Asmo, which will react to voice commands, has a hand it'll shake, it'll bow, just like the Japanese bow. It helps the elderly patients out of bed. You know, and Tokai Rubber has built a robot that can actually lift humans up to 175 pounds. So it can lift people out of bed. It can help them toilet. It can help them brush teeth. You know, Japan is developing robots to address this issue of what to do about caretakers. They're still working on robots that can actually brush your teeth, maybe even remove false teeth and put them away and clean them. Robots that can help elderly people go to the bathroom. You know, all those things are happening with robots. And it's not just in Japan, because Europe expects their over 65 population to grow from 17% to 30% by 2015. And what that is, it reminded me of the book of Bold, too. Because in Bold, they talk about the 6 Ds to understand what's going on in digitalizing and making robots and making products which are digital. You know, it begins with digitalization. That's the first D. Once a physical product is conceived, that it can be made digital. You know, you look at wiring circuits, you look at all those things that go. Once you begin to make it digital, that's the first step in the process. And we're seeing some of that now. We're seeing that with the robots, because they're not just physical. They're also hooked into the cloud. They're hooked into a great deal of computing, which can drive so many activities. It's not just a computer like a phone. It's a very significant amount of software that can be written for these little robots. But the second D is deception, because most people don't really realize what's happening. Part of this program is to let you, the listener, understand where we are so that you can be ahead of the curve, so that you understand what is happening, but most people won't understand. I use the concept sometimes to explain what's going on, because most people look at things in terms of straight lines. If you look at what the Fed is doing, it looks like a straight line. If you look at a lot of activities, it looks like a straight line. And I use the example of how much do you have after 30 days if you start with 1 penny and the amount doubles every day. Starts with 1 penny, 2 pennies, 4 pennies, 8 pennies. How much do you have after 30 days? Think about it. Take a second. Think, how much do you think you have after 30 days? Just 30 days and doubling every day. A lot of people will guess 100,000 or 10,000, or even take a wild guess of 1 million. But the reality is, after 30 days, you have 10 million, actually over $10 million, from 1 penny doubling 30 times. 1 penny and the quantity doubling 30 times. But if you look at the curve, if you actually drew a curve, what you'd find, number one, is that half of that 10 million comes on the last day. 75% comes on the last 2 days. 90% on the last 4 days. If you look at it in the beginning, it looks like a straight curve. But what happens is it hits a knuckle and it suddenly accelerates, and you see a curve that suddenly looks like it's exploding. That's the deception. Most people are looking at the straight end of the curve, don't realize what's happening at the end. The idea of this program is to let you know. We've talked about things like, we're talking now about robotics. We've talked about blue marble and bioengineering. There's more to come. The third D was disruption. It's a change in the industry. 45% or 47% of all jobs are going to be replaced by robots. That's the disruption that will happen and is happening. And not just robots, but when you think about some of the industries, the music industry between 2003 and 2007, 2,700 record stores died. Remember Tower Records? Doesn't exist anymore. You think about the video rental stores. They're all gone too. Newspapers. The third D is demonetization, because the old business will go away, but the new one actually becomes more efficient, more effective, and less expensive. Think about the digital camera and film and the difference in the cost. That's the 50, but don't go away. We've got the 60, and we want to wrap this up with the robots. So don't go away. I'll be right back after the commercial break.
About Money with Mike Adams will resume in a moment on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Did you know the 20-year annualized S&P return was 8.19%, while the 20-year annualized return for the average equity mutual fund investor was just 4.67%? That's a gap of 3.52%. It doesn't sound like much now, but it could mean the difference between retiring in comfort and running out of money. For some seniors, a gap that large could cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars and cut their retirement short. Don't run out of money. Call Mike Adams of Adams Financial Concepts today, 206-903-1019, and learn more about how you can, 1, create wealth for retirement, and 2, protect yourself from running out of money. Adams Financial Concepts specializes in creating and maintaining wealth. Call today, 206-903-1019, or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Compensated.
We're back with more About Money. For details on what you hear on today's show, visit adamsfinancialconcepts.com. Now, here again is Mike Adams.
So I've been talking about robotics and also from both the 6 Ds of industry change, disruptive change. Digitalization, deception, disruption, the demonetization, and finally dematerialization. That's the end of an industry. Whether you look at the business of record stores or travel agents or newspapers like the PI, or you look at film cameras, all those changed. But to me, the most important one for an investor is actually the deceptive part. That's the one where you don't realize the change that's going on. And if you're listening to today's program or today on CNBC or reading in the newspaper, you're not seeing what's coming usually. What's coming is in the infancy stages, and before you know it, it suddenly accelerates, and suddenly it's all around without you seeing it happen. My idea is for you, the listener, to understand that, and that's what I'm doing with robotics. Robotics is just one field, and caregiving robots are just one tiny portion of what's going on. There's going to be many, many other applications. When I think about medical devices, the Da Vinci robotic surgery, we had the guy who conceived the Da Vinci robotic surgery instrument here, something that is as non-invasive as you can be, practically. You can have a prostate surgery. Most prostate surgeries are long and laborious, and there's a 2-month or 1-month recovery. With the Da Vinci, the recovery is in days. Those things are happening. Nanorobots, they're talking about small robots that will be inserted into blood vessels, and they can drill out your plaque. Those things are on the drawing boards. They're coming. Things to help paraplegics, people with severe hearing and speaking problems. 3D printing, we already see 3D printing happening. We're seeing things that are faster, safer, less expensive. We're going to see self-driving automobiles. As much as I dislike the idea, I like the drive. I've always liked the drive. But we're going to see self-driving automobiles. That's coming. There's some clear benefits. There's going to be fewer injuries. There's going to be fewer traffic accidents, for example. It's going to be safer with less invasive surgery, and personal servants to take care of home and take care of care. And yet, from the workforce, it's going to be big changes. Warren Bennis famously observed that the factory of the future will have only two employees, a man and a dog. The man will be there to feed the dog, and the dog will be there to keep the man from touching any of the equipment. 2 employees, a man and a dog. The man to feed the dog, and the dog to make sure the man never touches the equipment. One of the recent articles in The Economist talked about a factory in China, for example, Precision Technology, that had 650 workers. They went to 60. They increased their output by 250%. They worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And most of what the 60 people do is check on and monitor the production lines. And they're looking at possibly dropping to as few as 20. Oxford University did a study that was released either last year or the year before, saying that 40% of U.S. jobs will be lost in the next 20 years. Already we're seeing some of the professions that are affected. You can now do a robotic lawyer that will actually defend a parking ticket for you. Paralegals replaced. The numbers actually haven't decreased. We're seeing medical diagnosis being made by robots. We're seeing robotic journalists that are writing articles. And we're actually seeing some therapists that are robots. Explain your problems to a robot. How about that? And actually, they're actually seeing some pretty favorable results from that. But the idea is to put you ahead of the curve. And one thing that happens is that robots don't sympathize, they don't empathize, and they don't really relate to the people that are there. That's going to be a real issue. That's an issue that humans do that robots don't do. You're going to hear more a little about later in the program about that. I play chess, and I never ever imagined that a computer would beat a chess expert. Never ever imagined, because after 3 moves, there's 9 million different positions that can be done. 9 million different positions. But after 4 moves, it goes to 288 billion. From 9 million to 288 billion after 4 moves. Think about that. And think of what it is in a 40-move game. Think about how many quadrillion moves and positions there are. I thought to build a computer that would really analyze that and take it out as far as it would, that's almost an impossible thing, And early on, when they started doing computerized chess, I bought one of those computers, or bought the software to do that. And I played, and I won the first time, but the computer never made the same move the second time. I won the second time and the third time and maybe the fourth or fifth time, but pretty soon the computer was beating me. Now, I'm a fairly good chess player, but I'm not a master chess player. And what I realized is computers don't compute all those different positions. They begin to learn, and they begin to learn strategy. Those same things that we learn as we were taught, and as we learn from mistakes that we made, the computers learn the same way. And they learn that certain moves are not to be made in the beginning. And each time they make those moves and make a mistake, they learn from their mistakes. We're dealing in a time of when computers are actually learning and applying. You know, they asked one of the chess masters recently, and I can't remember who it was. I just remember what he said. They asked him if he was preparing to meet a computer, how would he prepare to play? And he said if he was to prepare to play a computer, the thing he'd do is bring a hammer. I thought that was a great way, you know. And then came Watson, and Watson won on Jeopardy, and now they've got computers that win at Go. You know, computers are learning, and they're repeating processes. It's not just a straight digital transformation and computing areas and computing diagonals and computing numbers. They're actually learning from what they do. And that makes the robotic thing so effective. They can learn to shake hands. They can learn to brush teeth. They can learn to help someone go to the bathroom. Those are the things that are coming. And yet the things that they don't seem to be able to do, and which I have some real concerns that they ever will do, are to be able to do those human social activities, empathize, understand, relate, and do those sort of things. Which actually brings me to my guest today, because as we change, it's changing our living conditions, and I think it's only appropriate. Rob Jackson from Healthy Paws Pet Insurance is my guest today. Welcome to the program, Rob.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
So why don't we start with your background?
Well, I've been in the insurance business for more than 35 years, and I was fortunate early on to have some success and was able to build a professional liability insurance business that was acquired in the mid-90s and allowed me actually to venture off into some nonprofit work at the beginning of 2000. I guess you could say I'm in the kid business, two-legged and four-legged kids. And the two-legged kids started in the 90s, and then I put together a nonprofit youth basketball development facility in Woodinville, where we've got about 2,000 kids coming through. And it's really the point what we're trying to do is give them the habits that'll be successful on and off the court, and using basketball sort of as a vehicle to drive those habits. And after about 7 years of having a lot of fun coaching kids, being on there, I got a call and an opportunity to go into another business venture, and it was the four-legged kids. And I was not even aware that pet health insurance was out there, but quickly Googled it and found out that there were 180 million cats and dogs in there, and only 1 million of them insured on that. So it was a great opportunity, and what I've been able to do during the past 7 years is build a pet health insurance company that provides the protection of the cherished bond between a pet and a pet parent. And we're now the #1 rated customer company in the United States.
When you say #1 customer related?
Customer rated.
Rated.
Yeah. So, I mean, you'll probably go as far as your customers will allow you to go. And we tried to set up our company to deliver the wow experience, to make sure that when something, an accident or an illness took place, that a pet parent could focus their attention on getting their pet well and not worrying about whether that they'd have protection or whether or not they would have coverage on it. And so we've been really focused. We're really, I guess we would consider ourselves a pet company, not necessarily a pet insurance company, but so we're a pet company. Insurance is the vehicle, but every one of us under our roof are pet parents. And so we always put ourselves in that position to protect the pet parent.
We're going to come back, keep that in mind. We're going to come back and talk to it right after this commercial break. don't go away. We've got so much more to talk about. We want to get to black elephants as well. Those are not pet insurance, but we've got that to talk about. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
More About Money coming up with Mike Adams on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Creating and maintaining wealth has been the specialty of Adams Financial Concepts for over 20 years. Every portfolio managed by Adams Financial Concepts is customized to fit each particular client's objectives and risk tolerance. The client's interest always comes first in portfolio decisions. Call Mike Adams today at 206-903-1019 or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com to check out their AFC performance. They welcome your review. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Now we return to About Money. There's more information waiting for you at adamsfinancialconcepts.com. Here again is your host, Mike Adams.
I'm here with Rob Jackson of Healthy Paws Pet Insurance. You're right. Welcome back. We're talking about pets. And I wanted to ask the question because I remember we had 2 pets when my children were growing up. We had a cat who was afraid of dogs, and a dog, we got a puppy. We got it from Paws, of all places. So the dog was essentially free. We had to spade the dog and do those things. But essentially, it was a very inexpensive dog. And one night, I was out of the house going to get a DVD, and my daughter was babysitting a child, and the dog came running down the hall, and the cat was sitting there, and the cat reached out and clawed the dog in the eye. Took a big chunk out of the eye. The first vet we took it to just sewed the eye shut. That didn't work. We found out there were 10 animal eye surgeons in the world. And so my wife called from the eye surgeon and said, there's 2 possibilities. Either they can remove the eye, and that will be like $80, or they can do a graft on the eye, which was going to be a lot more expensive. What do you think? And being that I was in stocks, my first reaction, my gut reaction was, cut your losses. I knew, however, that would not go over well with my wife or my children. So we ended up, hiring the eye surgeon to do a graft on the eye. I think in the old days, if that would have been my parents, there's no question of what they would have done. One, there may not have been an animal eye surgeon for one thing, but it would have been something that they would have just removed the eye, or if a horse broke a leg, they'd shoot the horse. That's changed.
It really has changed these days. I think it's the phenomenon of the humanization of pets. You see people now, and pets are part of the family. Some people ask, who are the pet health insurance? So what does it cover? For instance, your dog having that accident, that would have been covered. And these days, there are, my gosh, the advances in veterinary care is amazing. And with the advances come the increased costs. There are a lot of folks that find out a little too late that they could have coverage. It's they're in the emergency room, and somebody is handing them a bill for $2,500 just for diagnostic tests on that. And sometimes they're faced with having to make the tough decision, just like you did, where do I go forward or do I cut my losses? What we're finding, the type of people that buy pet health insurance we usually ask that question, where's the pet sleep? If it sleeps in the bedroom, if it's up in the bed, if it's spooning you, you need pet health insurance. Yes. So the difference, pet parents buy pet health insurance because they consider their 4-legged family members as dear to them as their 2-legged family members. Pet owners, the pet is more like property. If something happens, maybe I'll get another one, or that type of thing. But what we're finding is on a daily basis, and it kind of goes back to your opening comments, the connectivity that people are looking for, that cherished bond that a pet provides a human. A robot can't do that. And that's one of the things that we're really doing. That's why we are just so stoked and passionate about what we do on a daily basis, because we are protecting that cherished bond between the pet and the pet parent, and allowing the pet parent to provide the best possible medical care when something unexpected happens.
And it seems, when you think about the world that we're moving into with the robotics and with the impersonal things that we're facing, that bond between people and their pets is only going to get stronger and more dependable.
Absolutely. These days, it's not even just the personal feelings when you look at it. Physical and mental health from the human standpoint, because you have a pet, it goes up. There's all sorts of studies that the human-animal bond research has those types of things. But just from an exercise standpoint, when you're taking your pet out, because a well-behaved pet is a tired pet. So if you can go out to the dog park and that pet can go for that good run, well, the good news is you're either walking fast or you're getting out too, which really encourages a healthy mindset on things. So they're not only good for us, for the endorphin that we get when we're patting them, and just that unconditional love. Nobody's happier when you walk through the door. And the other day I was saying to my wife that we've got an 11-year-old Russian Spaniel that we rescued several years ago, and every so often when we go out of town, we'll take him over to Spaniel camp, so he'll stay there for 3 or 4 days. But the night before, and we've got one of those coming on tonight, the night before when we're in there, we're going, gosh, it just seems so lonely without him there. And so one of the things we find is a pet really makes a house into a home on that. And I think with all of the distractions of the digital world and things like that, I think the relationship with either a cat or a dog is going to become even more important in the future.
It seems to be, and it has been in our case. So let's talk about the insurance portion of this too, because that's something that is something new in the last couple decades, but seems to be very important as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things is awareness, right? Not very many people are really aware of it. One of the phenomena that's happening right now is pet health insurance is one of the highest requested voluntary benefits by employees. And so a lot of people are starting to find out about it because the employer is offering it there as at least a benefit. Now, at least the employees still have to pay for it, but at least it's there and the awareness is there. But it's a very simple thing. And really, it's covering you for the unexpected, the cost of unexpected, the veterinary treatment for unexpected events. So an accident or an illness. I mean, some pet health insurance companies offer wellness, and I think they do that because most humans are used to having that in their own human health care. But you don't buy insurance for the expected, you buy insurance for the unexpected. Right? And so what we provide is very comprehensive coverage without any limitations. It's sort of a lifetime unlimited benefits, and it's really simple. It's for if it's an accident or an illness, so long as the clinical signs or symptoms weren't present prior to enrollment, it's covered. So,
and how do you make sure that they weren't there before coverage began?
It really all comes down to the medical records. And so it's important before somebody enrolls that they at least have a veterinary exam. And most people that are buying pet health insurance, they're pet parents. They're taking their pets to the vet, at least once a year, on a preventative and on a wellness play. So once that happens, it's really the last veterinary exam that almost serves as the baseline for pre-existing conditions. So it's not something that you have to submit when you enroll. It's usually submitted at the time of your first claim or your first accident or illness on that.
So, and how is the payment structured?
As far as the premium is concerned? Or
the premium, how do you determine what the premium is?
So several factors go into it. Type of pet, so if it's a cat or it's a dog. Type of breed. There are some breeds that, just by their very nature, they're more inclined to have veterinary care and unexpected things. The age of the pet, and even the zip code, because the cost of veterinary care in the middle of Iowa is quite different than it would be, in New York City on that. So that actually has a factor. So you roll all of those factors together. For instance, it takes, if you were to come to our website, healthypawspetinsurance.com, it takes you maybe 15 seconds to enter in the 5 pieces of information that we need, and you've got a quote that's customized to your pet. And really, all you're really looking at is you've got one plan, 4 paws, all covered, and you can decide whether or not what kind of the deductible and the co-insurance play. Then those are the things that will actually determine how to fit your budget.
So take us through that again, and emphasize the website.
Yes. So the website is healthypawspetinsurance.com. If you go there, you'll find that they'll ask you for, first of all, they ask you for the name of your pet, because that's probably the most important thing just to start the relationship with. But type of pet, the breed, the age, your zip code, and that's it. You enter that information in, and you're going to get a quote within 5 seconds, and then you can start to play around with the deductible and the co-insurance play, and the combination of your co-insurance and your deductible will be the thing that determines your monthly premium.
And the website again is
healthypawspetinsurance.com.
Pretty simple.
Yes.
Pretty straightforward. And really important in this age of time when we're losing a lot of real personal connectivity with the digital world.
Yeah.
And pets are becoming that more important in what we do.
Absolutely. As I say, one of the greatest things about our cell phone is we can do anything on it, but we can also get distracted and captured by it. And I think having that relationship with that 4-legged family member at home is one of the things that can actually provide the habit and the discipline to provide that connectivity that I think the humans are in badly need of.
For sure. And this is something, it's a new industry coming along. Do check out the website if you have a pet. Anyway, we're coming to another commercial break. Don't go away, because we want to come back and talk about black elephants, which are not pets.
Stay tuned. About Money returns in a moment with Mike Adams here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
How do you picture retirement? House on the beach, small farm in the country, traveling the world with your spouse. The one thing you don't picture is running out of money. Retirement dreams are shattered all too often by poor investment choices, sending many retirees back to work. If you think the job market is tough now, try entering it after you've retired. Don't run out of money. Start planning now. Call Mike Adams of Adams Financial Concepts today at 206-903-1019 and learn more about how you can create wealth for retirement and, probably most importantly, protect yourself from running out of money. Adams Financial Concepts specializes in creating and maintaining wealth. Call today, 206-903-1019, or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
About Money continues. Remember the website adamsfinancialconcepts.com. Here's Mike.
So I want to talk about black elephants. And there was one particularly important today, one incident, one thing that happened today that really brought this to mind. So let me back up a second, talk about what a black elephant is. So if you think about the 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009 time period, we talked about black swans. Black swans are random, unpredictable events that happen in a surprising way. Just like swans itself. That's why we call it a black swan, because swans are random, or black swans are random. usually have white swans. Usually it's very predictable. When the egg hatches, you have a white swan that hatches out cygnet. But every once in a while, you end up with a black swan. It's random. It's unpredictable. And that was what they called that time period. The Great Recession was a black swan because almost no one expected that that was going to happen. Well, black elephant is the concept when you think about elephants and people talk about the elephant in the middle of the room. It's something that's there. It's huge. People walk around it and pretend that it doesn't exist. They walk around it. They talk around it. It's visible to everyone, but no one wants to say or do anything about it. That's the black elephant. It's a black swan which is visible to most people, but no one wants to do anything about it or talk about it. And now over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about a number of the black elephants on and off during the programs. But I want to go back and talk a second. I've told this story any number of times, so you've probably heard it before. I got my MSIA, it's now an MBA, at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's located at the confluence of three rivers. The Monongahela and the Allegheny come together and form the Ohio. Right in that corner where they come together is Three Rivers Stadium. That's why it's named. The Monongahela, the Allegheny, and the Ohio. But one thing I used to like to do is take the tram up Mount Washington. And when you think about Mount Washington, it's like Somerset Hill in Bellevue. It's not a very high hill. It's not a very steep hill. But they have a tram that runs from the bottom to the top. And there's a restaurant at the top. I used to like to go up there and look down because as you look along the river, I think it's the Allegheny, but it could be the Monongahela. Along that river, you had blast furnaces from J&L Steel. Huge blast furnaces blowing a fire 100 feet into the air. It was a gorgeous sight to see. Now, it left the snow gray because it left all the pollution, but it was some sight to see. And when I was going to school there, I used to love to go up there and see that happen. It was so impressive. And at that time, the United States dominated the steel market worldwide. From World War II until the 1970s, the United States was very much the domination of the world in steel. We made the steel. But as Europe rebuilt, as Japan rebuilt, they began to make it more efficient. I started my career in the aluminum industry. And there, we went from casting the aluminum into these big ingots to actually casting wires, eliminating an entire process, eliminated a huge step. That was what was happening in the steel market. But instead of U.S. steel companies looking at this and saying, other people are more efficient than we are, we have to start making changes to our process. Instead, as those more efficient companies began to sell steel into the United States, they were selling it cheaper than U.S. Steel and Inland Steel and Bethlehem Steel and the other steel makers could make the steel. And instead of converting their processes and becoming more efficient, they went to the U.S. government and wanted tariffs on the steel. And what that did is ended up within it, by the 1990s, a steel market in the United States that was dying. Think about it. Gone Bethlehem, gone England, Inland, gone Allegheny, gone J&L. Those steel companies, gone completely. That's what it was. And, I started my career in the aluminum industry, and I've shared that story as well, that in the 1990s, the company that I worked for, Pecheney Aluminum, was nationalized by the government. The government was short of money. They ran a deficit, and the way to get around the deficit was to nationalize companies, Credit Lyonnais, Pecheney Aluminum, Eugene Coleman. All those companies were nationalized. And then after the dot-com, they were running a deficit, and they sold the stock to the public. So that brings me to what happened yesterday, on Wednesday. The United States government came out and decided in the favor of Boeing versus Bombardier. Bombardier has made a jet, the C-Series jet, that competes with the Boeing 737. And the U.S. government came out and decided to apply a 220% duty on the Bombardier C-jet. 220%, making it 2.2 times as expensive as they were selling it for. Now, it came about because the Bombardier wanted to develop and begin to compete with Boeing and Airbus and begin to produce their C-jet. They produced the Dash 8, the Dash 16, the Dash 400. They produced some turboprop planes, but they hadn't really developed into the light jet. Now they wanted to develop into the jet. They wanted to compete with Boeing. But Boeing, rather than competing with Bombardier, decided to go to the government and get a tariff put on. Bombardier had developed the plane, wasn't having great sales, and needed a cash infusion. The Canadian government bought 49% of the ownership of Bombardier, and Boeing said that was a subsidy. Instead of competing, Boeing went to the government. That has the potential of becoming a black swan. That's a black elephant. People are walking around it. It can affect NAFTA, can begin a trade war. It can begin any number of actions which are going to be a negative on our economy. It can force the Canadian government to apply tariffs on a number of our products. They're not going to buy anything aerospace-wise that's made in the United States. No Boeing parts. There's a reaction there's an action and a reaction. It's the black elephant in the aerospace field. It's the black elephant that's the potential trade war. We've known this is possible. We've known America, make America great, make America first, could result in a trade war. This is one step which could be putting us on a path to a worldwide trade war. We'll see where it goes. It's not there yet, but the idea of this program is to put you ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve. If you missed any part of this program, you can find a podcast within a few days on our website. You also find YouTube. And I will be back next week to talk more about money. Till then, have a great weekend and a great week.
You've been listening to About Money with Mike Adams, a registered investment advisor. If you'd like more information about what you heard today, or about Mike's investment philosophy and strategy, or if you want Mike to evaluate your own portfolio, click on AdamsFinancialConcepts.com. That's AdamsFinancialConcepts.com. The information shared on the preceding program was for educational purposes only, and any investment advice given may not be suitable for all investors. Join us again for more About Money with Mike Adams here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.
The preceding program was sponsored by Adams Financial Concepts. Creating and maintaining wealth has been the specialty of Adams Financial Concepts for over 20 years. Every portfolio managed by Adams Financial Concepts is customized to fit each particular client's objectives and risk tolerance. The client's interest always comes first in portfolio decisions. Call Mike Adams today at 206-903-1019 or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com to check out their AFC performance. They welcome your review. That's Adams Financial